Hello everybody, my name is Bill and this is the channel Canvas and Chords. Today I am starting the restoration of this 1907 F2 Gibson mandolin that I have had on the back shelf for years. I got this originally from my acoustic guitar teacher slash mentor, Al Caruth. Al, this happened before COVID, so this has been sitting in storage for a long time, and I've been wanting to do this for that long. So finally my schedule has freed up enough that I can start to work on this thing. This was given to Al years ago, and he brought it out to show me this in context to something he was trying to explain to me. And I looked at that and I said, "What are you going to do with that, Al?" He says, "Nothing." He says, it's busted up and it needs a lot of work. And he says, "I don't have the time or the desire to do it." So I said, "Can I?" So he said yes. He gave this to me, no charge. Just it gets it out of his shop. And possibly we can make this thing a usable, playable mandolin again. That is the goal. At least if we don't get it that far, we can put it back together so it looks like an original Gibson F2 mandolin. Anyway, so mostly what I have to fix is some splits. So the fretboard is split, and I put some clamps around that fretboard to see if I could bring that split in, and I can. So we're gonna try and glue that up, but we'll glue that fretboard up last. The first thing I need to do is I really do need to go after the big split in the center of this thing. It is pretty significant. Yeah, it is pretty significant. And that split goes all the way up pretty much the entire length of the neck. Al is not warm and fuzzy that I'm going to be able to put this back together, but at this point, you know, like I said, it's always worth a try. So I've never done a lot of restoration work to stringed instruments. I've done a little bit, but so I'm kind of learning as I go here, and I'm relying a lot on some of my friends and contacts who are in the restoration business. So we're going to use hide glue to fix this because it was put together originally with hide glue, and several of my friends in the industry, in the restoration business, tell me that if it was put together with hide glue, it is probably the best way to do the restoration and the repair. So I've got some hide glue, we're going to do that. Before we go into any of that work, I want to take a few minutes. By the way, so this is the bridge. So the bridge was in the cavity of the mandolin. In my last video talking about the intonation of the 00 blues guitar, I said that I had to intonate the bridge, and there's an example of how you intonate it by simply carving away the material so the string lengths end up being correct. And we're going to do that to the 00 as well. So we're going to put that bridge and this little piece of broken binding in a box so that I've got access to it. We're also going to remove the tuners, and I'll put the tuners in this box as well. Before I start the restoration, I want to walk you around this mandolin. I want to tell you a little bit about the history of Gibson from this period, show you some of the things that are, this thing is all correct, it's all original, but I want to kind of point out some of those things. Before I do that, let me pull these clamps off so I can get you a really good view of this entire mandolin. So bear in mind that Gibson, or the factory, was started in 1902. This was built in 1907. So 5 years after the start of the factory, this was built. The mandolin was one of the first or early instruments that Gibson made. And Orville Gibson was actually employed at the factory by this time because Gibson had sold shares of this to investors. That turned out to be not such a really good thing for him because they ended up throwing him out for a lot of reasons. It's a fun kind of story, history. Yeah, that didn't open up as much as I thought it would. So we actually were able to get that to come in. But let's talk about the condition of this a little bit, and then talk about some more history. Now, the bridge, you can see this little line, this little white line in the discoloration. That is where the bridge lives. And of course, the strings come up over the bridge. And one of the, I don't know if it's unfortunate or not, but the tension on this over the last 120 some odd years has flattened this, so there's a flatness to this. I have never seen another one, so I can't tell you if that's supposed to be that way. My guess is that just over the years, the compression of the strings and the bridge have flattened this. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm hoping that this thing strings up and plays like it should. So early on in Kalamazoo, Gibson Company factory had two factory buildings that they were working out of. They had, by 1915, they had 61 employees. And according to the records I have, they were working 6 days a week, 9-hour days. That's a lot of time. But I think that was often typical of early manufacturing. So they had Sundays off. So being able to date this F2 accurately, there's several markings that helps to do that. I don't know if I can get you to see that, but underneath here, on the back of the neck block, there is a stamped number that says 507. And that is they call that a factory order number. It was just a way of them tracking their cost in their inventory. So several instruments would be associated with that inventory number. The other is the serial number itself. And that number is 7287. And if you look up that number, and there is a database out there I can point you to if that's something you're interested in, just leave a comment. According to that serial number, the year of manufacture was 1907 in the series. So between the factory order number and the serial number, we know that it is in that range, so therefore we are pretty confident it was manufactured in 1907. Gibson made, if I understand the numbering, about 3,650 total of these F2s, and they made it from 1904 to 1934. So this didn't have a lot of longevity in this style. They made several different versions of this, and this is just one version of the F2. And another way we can identify it is with that tag that has the serial number on it. That is the correct tag for that period of time. And that label was used by Gibson from 1903 to 1910. So 1907 places that right in the center of that. This is the correct tailpiece for the Gibson at that period of time. This simply slides off and you can see where the strings are attached. Never done this, but I'm going to learn. So that's here, that's excellent. These are the correct tuners. So we have them, that's excellent. This is the correct marking for 1907. You can see that I am missing part of that inlay. I've said in an earlier video, I'm not going to worry about that. As well as this tuner attachment plate, that is correct. The finish on this mandolin is varnish, and Gibson used varnish from 1903 to 1924, and it was sprayed, and I'll tell you that story when we get to the point where we're trying to clean this finish up a little bit, but it was sprayed. So let's do a little bit of a tour around this and show you some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. There are things that I'm going to try and repair. There are things I'm just going to leave alone. And again, I'm not going to know what I'm dealing with until I string it up and actually get to make some sound with it. So the finish is all crazed. We've talked about that. It has issues that is not untypical of varnish that is that old. All the binding around the outside is in good condition and it's all attached, so that's good. This rosette is in good original condition. We are losing a little bit of finish here, and my suspicion is that has more to do with the player, somebody picking the strings with a pick and having chipped that away. That's my suspicion. This little inlay is in good shape. It's bubbling a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about that. The top overall is in excellent shape. There is one small crack right along in here. When we work our way around the side of the mandolin, it's also in good original condition. I'm not sure what the wood is. This might be mahogany, possibly. So we're not going to do too much to the body itself. Binding on the neck, this part is original and it has all the markers on it, so I don't want to lose that. I do need to glue it up. And this is the piece that just, broke off back here, but we'll glue that on. So I want to maintain that as best as I can. This stuff all gets very, very brittle over the time. I have some white plastic, that binding material that I'm going to try and replicate on the side of this neck. That ought to be interesting. I'm going to have to thin this down and shape it because that dimension in here is pretty thin, much thinner than what this binding is. So I'm going to have to work that. So that is a problem. So I've already mentioned that there's a small crack in the fretboard. The neck itself is actually there. There's no breaks, no chips, none of that, but it is split. So I am going to have to glue up this. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this yet. So this is the big split is here. So I'm not sure that I won't try to glue this up first and then just spread this apart later. Trouble is, if I do that, I'm going to lose the ability to open this up. So I may try to do it all. Nice thing about hide glue is it has a long open time. So I can get it in there, get it clamped up, and not have to worry about it setting up too quickly. So that'll be a benefit to this. I got to clean up these tuners. These tuners are really grungy and dirty, so I got to get those cleaned up. Not too worried about it at this point. I was missing one of the screws and a tuner gear. So I took one out of stock. I found one that was the right ratio. So I pulled one out of my vintage stock, and it's not the correct tuner gear, nor is it the correct screw, but it works. I hate to spend too much money buying parts if this thing isn't going to play when it's all done. And the same thing with this broken volute. I'm wanting to do this, but I think before I spend any effort at this is going to be quite a job. So I think before I spend any huge amounts of effort reproducing the volute, I think I just want to get this glued up, strung up, and find out if it even plays. I think at some point you have to cut your losses, and this may be when I cut my losses if this thing won't tune up or play. Before I do any additional work, I want to get these tuners off. I don't need them in the way, and I'm going to have to use some clamps, and obviously I don't want to be working around these tuners while I'm doing that. Okay, there we go. And that is going to fit, sort of. All right. Ooh, I don't know what that is. That's interesting. So I wonder why these dot holes are in here. If you're a luthier and you're familiar with Gibson mandolins, let me know what you think those are. Do I have strings? I have no strings, so that'll pop right out. Everything's going to fit in that box, but that's good enough. We're not going to take these ferrules out. We'll leave those alone. Yep, same thing. You can see just this, even this center strip is is in trouble. So that goes all the way up into here. And it stops right here, so mostly just the headstock on this one. So I asked Al if he thought I should clean out the old hide glue that comes up through that put this thing together. Oh, just lost my nut. Ooh, gotta be careful with that. Ay, ay, ay. That is not good. Okay. That is not good. Okay, more work. Into here, where goes that? And he said no. He said not to clean it out. That if we add fresh hide glue, it should amalgamate to the older hide glue. And we're going to find out. That's what we're going to do today. That'll be the end of this video, getting this thing glued up with that hide glue. Complicated one. I got 4 cameras running here. All right, so I started to split this apart, and there were some things. So one of the centerpieces actually fell out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from up near the nut, and I'm going to try and force glue down inside of here. and we're going to see how this goes. Nice thing about hide glue is it is water cleanup, so hopefully I can force this down inside this crack and whatever the residue is up on the surface, get this cleaned out or cleaned up. As I've said, I have never done this kind of a repair before, so I am not completely familiar with it, but I'm not completely scared of it either, so so interesting. All right, how about, can I get it back in here? As I've said, I've never done this. I've done plenty of glue ups, but usually I'm using modern epoxies, and I was cautioned against that because this had already been glued once with hide glue. If you have any thoughts, I'm always willing to listen to your thoughts, but I always ask that you be respectful. I think one of the things to think about, if you would, is that a lot of craftsmen, sometimes we get a little arrogant in the way we communicate in our belief systems, and then we wonder why younger kids aren't getting involved. The whole point of my other channel, my main channel, 6 Round Studio, when I set it up, was to kind of share with the world what old-fashioned craft and craftsmanship was, and at the same time invite a younger generation in to be a part of it. And interestingly, over on the other channel, 6 Rounds, I noticed that my demographics, my age of viewers is getting younger. It used to be 55 to older, or 55 to dead, I like to say. But I've noticed recently that that number, that age is changing. And when I look at the demographics for this new channel, Canvas and Chords, it's sort of a continuation of the other channel. The things that I'm doing here are more specific to art and craft and craftsmanship as opposed to the other one. But I've noticed here as well that my viewers are younger. So if you have things you want to share with me, because I've never done this before, always bear that in mind. If I've never done this before, then a lot of younger people have never done this before as well. And if you want folks to get into the trades, put your egos and your arrogance in your hip pocket and not bring it back out. I want to see more people getting into trades than fewer. All right, so I've got the neck. The glue is in the neck. Now I got to get this headstock. And this is, not looking forward to this. This is going to be interesting. I think what I'm going to do just stuffing it in there. All right, let's take out, or let's move these spacers or wedges further forward. God, everything is breaking. Al was right. Al was telling me that one of the problems I may have was going to be that center strip. If there was going to be an issue, that's where it was going to be. And so far, he's been right. So let's... Boy, that's a big piece. So though this has been, or is, my first time doing this type of a repair, it's not my first time using hide glue. One thing I've noticed about hide glue, boy, that little laminate is wanting to come loose. Oh, damn. Anyway, is hide glue tends to be pretty forgiving. Tends to want to work with you, not against you, like some yellow glues do. That yellow glue starts to set up almost instantly. That's one of the reasons I like modern epoxies, especially if you can get some of that slower drying epoxy. The advantage to that is that it is slow drying and you have a lot of working time or open time. Alright, let's kind of work our way up through here. See a lot of that with older musicians sometimes too. A level of arrogance that it's like if you want this to continue, you gotta be invitational. You have to have or want other people to come in. You know, I mean, you learned your stuff. You know, you spent your time. You did your work. But somebody had to teach you. I mean, somebody had to be a mentor to you at some point. Here I am, 72 years old, and I still have mentors. I still have people that I admire. All right, now this is where I am not sure exactly where this goes from here. Does that go in there or not? Question is, where's the rest of this? How did I lose that? There it is right there. Alright, I didn't lose it. Alright, that's going to go right in there like this. Another interesting difference in philosophy. My mentor, teacher Al, Al is all about using hide glue that he makes or mixes and heats himself. And my good friend Mark, who makes his living doing high-end restorations. He works for museums, private clients, and I asked him if he used hide glue, and he said he does. He uses it a lot. And then I asked him the same question: do you mix your hide glue, or do you use a pre-made, and he said, I just use Franklin Tight Bond. So I'm going to use Franklin Tight Bond and see its value. I mean, it's the first time I've done this. All right, did I lose something here? I did. That goes in there like that. Now, I don't know what I've accomplished here, but I've got a lot of glue everywhere. All right. I've got glue everywhere. Another nice thing about hide glue is when it dries, if you have residue, you can scrape away as close to the finished as you can, or finished as you can, and then use water to soften it and eventually get it to let go. Alright guys, I've got to clean this up and get it better aligned, and I will bring you back when we're closer to being done. What do you think, guys? Are we going to do this or not? It's glued up for sure. Will it hold? I don't know. I'm hoping it does. What do you guys think? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Did we make this thing better, or did we just put a bunch of glue inside a broken gap? Anyway, so we're going to let this dry for 24 hours before we start taking it apart. You guys are going to have to come back in order to find out how this works. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 projects in the shop right now, and this is glued up so it can dry. So if you want to see the results of this, you are going to have to come back. So subscribe to the channel so you get notified when this thing goes live, when any of the projects I work on go live. Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this thing all turns out. Guys, if you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I love you, and I will see you in an upcoming video soon. Bye, guys.